Hi class, welcome back to Writing 201. Today we will focus on taboo. Let's kick things off with sense and reason. In order for your taboo subject to make sense, it has to tie with your overall theme. And if you have several, same deal. If there's no sense to what you're trying to accomplish or any kind of pairing that doesn't create some kind of jarring effect in the story, then it has no place to be there. And it makes it that much harder for you to, defend yourself against any backlash or offended people in general. So make sure that you can make sense of why that taboo subject is even there. And the other half of that is reason. There has to be a reason why you're including this. Without you knowing the reason or purpose of that taboo, then it's not that it's meaningless. It just looks like a copy and paste example of, I guess, a direct representation of that has no layers to it. It's just the subject itself. I mean, why bother being brave and including sensitive subject matter if you don't know the reason why you're doing it? Is it just to, capitalize on the ick factor? I mean, that's why it's important to understand what you're trying to do here. Second, character type. When you are trying to really paint a picture, even if it's not a sensitive subject, the type of character you choose to commit a certain action has to not be right. It has to make sense. Right and make sense is two different things. Right means, of course, that person would do that. Make sense is more like you've incorporated emotional acreage that allows your character to have not justification, but reasoning for that action. Reasoning doesn't mean that whatever horrible act you choose to make that character do is justified. It's more like it doesn't feel out of place. When you're trying to create an ick factor, you're not trying to jar the reader or make them uncomfortable and nothing else. You can make them uncomfortable, but it makes them think about the weight of the subject, not the grossness. Grossness without intent is meaningless. So make sure you have meaning, and in order to do that, you have to have the right character committing to that action. And when you have the right character, it means that before that happened, before that taboo subject was blatantly put into a scene or chapter, the lead up to it made sense because of the character you chose to commit to that action. So whatever they did before that led up to this, and the reader wasn't completely thrown off. They may be surprised, but as long as you were able to show, not tell, in terms of why that happened and why this character committed such an action, then the reader will see the shock value as a good payoff. Especially the climax of the story after the fact of the taboo subject that was blatantly put into a scene. Third, get specific. So that's kind of, it may sound the same as character type or finding reasoning, but get specific means like you're not just representing your interpretation or someone else's interpretation of that subject. It's more like the specifics for the story, as in, why does this matter for the character and the story itself? So when you include that subject, you have to ask yourself, what does this mean for the story? And what does this mean specifically for the character? Because if it's just there without anything around it that connects to it, no, like through line that it can connect to, then it's just gonna be like, why is this here? Why did the author decide to just gross me out without explaining why? A while ago, I wrote a book called All in the Family, and although it got an award and a 4-star rating, the reviewer said that the insinuation of rape that I implemented was very out of the blue and didn't make sense for the story. It's not that it was gross and very disturbing. It's more like it just didn't fit the story and the character that committed the action. Yes, the character is a very disturbing person, but it didn't make sense for the story. It just jarred the reader. So that's what I mean by being specific. If the horrible act has a reason for being there, then you're okay. So make sure you get specific. Next, 4, well-rounded scene. So that kind of ties with getting specific, but it's a bigger scale. So well-rounded scene means when you decide to do the shock value, the big payoff, the big in-your-face taboo subject that ties with the theme of the story, you have to make sure that all components of the craft of your writing ties with the overall energy and haunting aura that it has. So make sure that your atmosphere, your characters, your background, the world building, placement of scene, placement meaning where it is in the story, does its job. All of these things really matter, because if you're just going for boldness without reasoning, then it doesn't come off that way. It comes off as just disturbing. There's disturbing with the reader's acceptance of it, and disturbing in the sense that automatically they're going to be triggered or just grossed out. You don't just when you gross a reader out, you're not doing it on purpose. You're not trying to get them to close the book, is what I mean by on purpose. So make sure that your scene is well-rounded, because if you don't, and all you have is just the horrific image, then of course someone will take it the wrong way. Especially because it'll seem out of place, and they'll either just go like, what the hell is this doing here? Or if you do the opposite, where you did such a good job of making sure that everything in that scene and everything that led up to it made sense, then you're okay. Next, backlash response. So I never really responded to backlash, because I'm always careful with any sensitive subject matter that I put in there, because when I do it, it's to serve the story as opposed to me thinking of how the reader is going to react to it, because I'm not trying to get a reaction out of the reader. I'm just putting in what makes sense for the story. So let's say you get backlash. If it's just one person, don't worry about it, let it be. Because it's just one person, you're not going to be able to please everyone, and you shouldn't be. But if it's a whole group of people, then that means one or two things. Either one, you created a huge misunderstanding, and therefore your response should be only to clarify why that subject is in there, and Not in the sense that you're censoring yourself or backpedaling your stance or how you're sticking to your guns for why this is there. It's more like you're just clarifying the intent and interpretation for that subject matter. And make sure that you clarify that any taboo subject that you include is nothing to do with your direct understanding or perspective of this subject. It's just what served the story best. That's all it is. And if anyone says, well, I think that you're a freaking sexist, nah. I think you're this, I think you're that. It's like, well, did you actually talk to me? Or are you just being defensive? Because the whole purpose of storytelling isn't to offend or not offend. It's just to tell stories and different interpretations of life. It doesn't mean that everything that's on paper is coming from the author, like directly from their mind. It's everything. It's internal, external perspective is what I'm trying to get to here. Okay, so second to that is how to improve after backlash. So to do so, when you do get backlash, improving doesn't mean you start to water down what you were trying to get to with these taboo subjects and themes. It's more like you're improving how you're writing it in terms of all aspects of the craft of writing. Not a better understanding of the subject, but a better understanding of storytelling. So this is obviously all relative for all parts of the craft of writing. But when it comes to backlash towards taboo subjects, the best way to improve, aside from working on everything in your writing, is to ask yourself, what is it about sensitive subject matter that matters most to me? What is it about these sensitive subject matters that resonate with me in terms of me being a storyteller? Not how does it resonate with me as a person, but how the importance of it being there does its job to move the story forward. And that goes for everything, but we're focusing on taboo. And that's something to take to heart. I mean, obviously, if you want to ask me how to craft a response, you can always ask me, and I'm okay with that. So let's cap this off, with the last note: how to not censor yourself. So this takes time, learning to not censor yourself, because when you're first writing, that is your biggest fear: is will you be silenced or censored, or do you have to censor yourself? And like, I'm a fresh writer, I don't know if I can go that boldly. Well, the thing to remember is, in a way, you're writing for yourself, in the hopes that others will see the truth, I guess, in what you're trying to write. And it doesn't have to be your truth, it can be their truth too, you know? And if their truth does not coincide with what they got out of the book or what they believe in themselves, then that's just one reader you have less. And that's okay, because that means that you did your job. You were so clear and so definitive about the overall message and goal of your story that whatever sensitive subject matter you included did its job to service the story in your eyes, and to your editor and those who understand what you're trying to go for in the story. Censorship is a real TV and media thing, and when it comes to writing, you gotta be not desensitized, just not so worried about offending others or not offending others. When I was in school, we actually were taught about sensitivity writers, meaning someone has the job of combing through your book to see anything that could trigger someone, any sensitive subject matter you should avoid. But that's total BS. Like, I don't want someone censoring me, or making sure I don't get in trouble, or hurt someone's feelings, or create a freaking mutiny on my hands. No, I don't want that. What I do want is to get a genuine reaction from readers, and if it's negative, I have to ask myself, why is this happening? Why am I getting a negative wave out of this taboo subject that I included? And then ask myself, well, do I want to just stop working on this or stop including this subject? Or do I want to improve and see how I can use this subject to my advantage in a positive way? Because to me, you should always have a positive outlook on storytelling. Just because you're writing something like a horror novel or thriller, and you have these dark themes and sensitive subject matter, you have to make sure that you see the good in having this type of darkness. Because without seeing the positive in the darkness that you're including, then no one's going to read your book. Because then you're just diving into a void of darkness. Like, you just have to be self-aware of what you're doing. Okay? That's really the bulk of what I'm trying to say here with all these notes on Taboo, is to just be self-aware of what you're doing. And of yourself, especially when you're responding to backlash or just taking it in. Okay? So, be brave, breathe, talk to others, ask yourself, why is this happening, if you get backlash. And also, another tip for improving after backlash: read books that have the same sensitive subject matter that you include in your stories. And then ask yourself, what is that author doing that I'm not, that made this book do well without any backlash, with the same sensitive subject matter that I included? And then try to implement that. You're not copying them, you're just doing better. Okay? Alright guys, happy reading, have a good day, and stay strong.